Joining us now to discuss the trial of Jimmy Lai, we have Hong Kong pro-democracy activist Frances Hui, who is currently living in exile. Hui was recently given a hefty bounty by Hong Kong authorities for her political activism. Frances Hui, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Hi, thanks.
To begin, you left Hong Kong in 2020 amid Beijing's clampdown on pro-democracy activists. Now, just last week, you woke up to the news that there is a bounty on your head. What was your reaction to that, and knowing that you may never be able to freely go back to Hong Kong?
Well, so I woke up 7 a.m. in the morning and I saw the text and, a bunch of calls on my phone. And it's all about the bounty, the Hong Kong dollar, $1 million bounty that was placed on me. And, obviously I was shocked, but, last July, they actually issued the first round of bounty and arrest warrants on 8 other overseas activists. And I think we were mostly, most surprised by that news. And after that, a lot of us kind of just prepare ourselves mentally that this will eventually happen. But I do need to say that, no matter, even though, I have prepared myself for this, it's still shocking. I don't think anyone could be mentally prepared for what's come after, all the emotion and the impacts that is going to happen to our life. After that, I mean, there are a lot of things that I need to take care, not just media interview, but also my personal safety, security issue, that kind of thing.
What are you being accused of to have this $1 million bounty on you?
Yeah, so in the press conference and the paper, the charge sheet that the Bureau published, it cited that during from the time I was in the U.S., from 2020 to 2022, I was involved in engaging with foreign countries and foreign governments, encouraging them to impose sanctions against the PRC, and also, activities that are deemed as, hostile activities against the PRC. And that was the reason that they put up on the charge sheet. There is no particular evidence or, incidents that they refer to. But I would take the guess that the recently introduced Hong Kong Sanction Act is probably what triggered them and step on their nerves. It is a bill that's introduced bipartisanly in both houses of Congress to call for sanction on 49 judges, officials, and prosecutors in Hong Kong who are responsible for the crackdown of the civil society and the liberties and freedom that people used to enjoy. And I think, judging from the reaction from the government after that bill was introduced, we can tell that the government was really, angry about this. And I have publicly, shared that I was involved in the development of this bill. And throughout that time, I, from the beginning of, seeking congressmen to introduce the bill to the point that it was introduced, I was, quite involved in this process. And so I think that was what kind of triggered them in, issuing a second round of bounties against us.
Wow. And Hong Kong was an example of the one country, two systems model. But now, given the passage of the National Security Act, all these different things, is it safe to say that Hong Kong is now fully under the control of the Chinese Communist Party, or are there still independent groups in Hong Kong?
No, I think the international community should see Hong Kong and China as one. This has been, the narrative that we have been putting out to counter the Hong Kong government's narrative. They have been trying to pretend that nothing had happened. They have settled everything and resolved things that happened in 2019 and 2020. And now the society has returned back to normal. And, they put out all these Hello Hong Kong campaigns, come back to our city and do business and travel, things like that. And all of this is to pretend nothing had happened. But at the same time, in courtrooms, in detention, in jail, there are over 1,000 political prisoners that are sitting in jail in this detention center, either criminalized for their political engagement, or they're waiting for trial. Actually, today is, you mentioned earlier, before this hit, today is Jimmy Lai's trial, the start of his trial. He had been in jail for nearly 1,100 days, which is more than 3 years and a half. And all of this is for crimes, national security charges that he has not been convicted for. And all they were hoping is to keep delaying his trial and keeping him in jail. And perhaps after, when this trial is done, when the sentence comes down, we will probably see, a life sentencing. With national security cases, they are allowed to request for no jury. All the national security judges are appointed by the government. So they are obviously complicit with the government in the crackdown as well. I don't think it's wise to look at Hong Kong as what we see Hong Kong in the past. It is actually, China's Hong Kong, essentially. And if we started to change that lens at looking at Hong Kong, it will help us in better understanding how things are going to unfold and going to continue to, worsen.
On the note of Jimmy Lai and today being the first day of his trial, how significant is this, and what do you hope is the international community's response to this trial?
Yeah, so I think, as I said, the world has waited for this trial to start for a very long time. The reason why it's so significant is that Jimmy Lai himself is a 75-year-old, media tycoon who started this pro-democracy newspaper, the Apple Daily. He is a billionaire, and 3 years ago he could have left with all his money and assets, but he chose to stay. And in multiple interviews, he told people that because Hong Kong gave him freedom when he was young, and Hong Kong made him today, and so he is willing to return, the freedom that he got to the place that nurture him. And I think that's so, everyone who has heard of his story would all be very inspired by his story. And I mean, we all wish that we could be as brave as he is. And so I think, this time, in this trial, this is not only Jimmy Lai's trial, it is a trial of media freedom. It's a trial of the legal system. And it's a benchmark of how far from grace that, the system and the media freedom have sunk in this city that's once thriving and, that's so freedom loving, and everyone basically take that as, our dear values. I'm sure, the international community is paying a lot of attention. I would just hope that, during this 80-day trial, the attention would not go away. We will expect a really ugly show trial to take place. The prosecutor would obviously provide a tons of evidence of his crime, including political connections abroad, articles he have written, or, any sort of, foreign media outlets, contacts, stuff like that. And, it would be really difficult for him. And at the same time, as I said, the judges are all basically appointed by the government. So, this slam trial needs more attention from the international community, not just for the first day, but throughout this it's important for us to show support to him and to his family, and to the journalists, who are out there. And I think we will basically, see how things go from looking at his trial to understand what's going on in Hong Kong right now.
Frances Hui, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.